Okay, we are live. Guys, I am super excited to welcome our next guest. So let's get freaky. We have got Rob Gutro with us tonight. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Tommy. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you, man. You're in Washington State, is that correct? Or Washington, D.C.?
I used to be in Washington, D.C., but I recently moved to the great state of Maine.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I'm not just saying this, but I've I've decided I want to live in New England. I,
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be.
Man, it is beautiful. Oh, that's cool. That is, I'm just trying to convince the wife. We've got to try and make it happen somehow, but that's the dream one day.
Well, I would highly recommend pursuing it because you will not be happier.
Oh man, I'm coming. Awesome, man. So you are an author, paranormal investigator, a medium. Uh, have I missed anything? Have I got it all?
Well, in my day job, I do actually have a day job, and that's a meteorologist. So I'm
Oh
a
wow,
scientist by trade.
man, that's cool. You're a cool guy, man.
Well, I just have a lot going on.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd like to go sort of to where it all started for you, to the beginning. How did you get into the paranormal, and how did you sort of start realizing that you had the abilities that you've got?
Sure. Well, I was very young. I was 13 years old, and I was kind of kicked into it, if you will, because my grandfather had passed away one December, and I was 13, and then in July in the summertime, when I was home only with the family dog, he decided to show up in full color in front of me, and he scared the daylights out of me. Yeah. Um, so when my parents arrived home, I talked to them and I told them I had a great relationship with them, and my mother said, "Okay, we need to talk," because my mom had the ability, she didn't use it. My grandfather had the ability, an aunt in my family had the ability, and that aunt, it's I don't know, or second cousin rather. She used to solve murders in Massachusetts with the police back in the 50s, I think, with that
Wow,
ability. So yeah.
wow,
So that ability went away for me until 2005 when a puppy I had named Buzz was killed by a car tragically. And he reawakened that ability like crazy. So he taught me how pets communicate from the afterlife as well as people.
interesting. When you
Yeah,
when you when you saw your granddad for the first time, was that a full-bodied apparition?
it was. And he was in full color. And that's very rare for me to see someone like that. Um, and I think that's probably why it was the most startling because I went to his wake. So you see him laid out, and then suddenly he's standing in front of you 7 months later. And I was scared to death,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Wow. How long did that experience last?
Oh, I only gave it a few seconds before I
Yeah,
before I ran outside.
yeah,
So there was kind of a regret, now that I'm a lot older, that I wish I stayed and I asked him questions. But when you're a teenager and you see something like that, you run. Have you ever seen a full body apparition
I have. Yes,
in color?
in color. When I was 10 years old, I
Oh my
woke up.
gosh.
Yeah, I woke up during the night and there was a man. We used to be in bunk beds, me and my brother, and I was on the top bunk. And I woke up during the night and I saw a man sitting at our desk, just sort of looking in my direction, full bodied. Um, I always say he looked like William Shakespeare. That was the sort of, when I see pictures of William Shakespeare now, it just takes me back to seeing him. It wasn't William Shakespeare. It was just someone from that era. So that's sort of how
Hmm.
I just remembered it as a kid. But I could see his suit. He was wearing like a brown suit. I could see his beard. I could see everything. It was just a man in my room. And I've screamed, got my mum to come in the room, and she couldn't see him, but he was still there.
Sure.
And she calmed me down somehow. to this day I don't know how, but I just remember going under the covers, sweating all night. I stayed in the room somehow, and every time I looked, he was still there, and he was
Oh
there all
my
night.
gosh.
Yeah, so I had that experience. So from that age, well, I feel like I've always known that there's more to this world, but that was from then on. There's no doubt for me that there's so much more.
But really, how frightening. I mean, just to
Yeah,
stay in that same room, I wouldn't have. You,
yeah,
you,
it's
you're a
terrifying,
very
man.
brave guy.
And I was terrified, and I still say to my mum now, like, I can't believe you left me in the room, and she says sorry. But it sort of set me on the journey that I'm on now. So I guess it's quite cool, really. But it's quite a cool. It's a cool thing to experience, even though it's terrifying. I've had other experiences since, but that's the only time I've seen a full-bodied apparition that I know of. I did actually see something else in that house as well. I saw a naked lady walk past me, full-bodied as well, that I thought was my mum, and it wasn't my mum. So that was another time that I saw a colour. But yeah, man, it's
So your house was an older house,
no,
or
no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't an old house. I don't know the exact age, but it wasn't. It was quite. It was a newish house actually. Um, so I'm 36 now, so I'm trying to work out quickly how old it. I don't know actually, but it was right next to a graveyard, so I don't know if that played a part. I know that the guy that we bought the house of, the lady, I always say the guy, he died in the house. His wife,
okay.
we bought. So I don't know if there's anything to do with him, but there was a lot of activity in that house. The whole family experienced things, but I was the only
Wow.
one who saw something like that.
S- Wow. So, and what town was it in?
So this was in Brentwood in the UK, which is not
Okay.
far from London. It's in Essex in the
Okay.
UK. Yeah. So I'd like to go back to the house actually and sort of talk to the people that live there now. And it's something I'm thinking about going back and just seeing. I don't want to scare anyone, but just say, do you anything happening here? Do you see a
Yeah, anything weird happening here?
Shakespeare looking guy about? But yeah, I don't know. But for me, that's what sort of I've always known that there's more, and that was a big moment for me.
So we both had introductions when we were kids. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's something you hear a lot when it comes to a lot of people that are really into the paranormal seem to have had some sort of experience when they was a kid.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if you're more open when you're a kid, and then once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you know that there's more.
Yeah, I've found that the children are much more open to seeing earthbound ghosts or spirits that have crossed over, and because as we grow up, we're taught to use our logical minds that to dispel them and deny them. So we eventually do deny them, um, and then it takes a while to reopen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of kids get told, "Oh no, you've not seen anything. It's fine." And I don't know if you sort of put it to the back of your mind and you lose your abilities. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah, I shelved mine for decades. Yep.
so after you saw your granddad, you wasn't having experiences right after that, or
I was not. I get too caught up in going to school and going to college and working jobs and so forth. And then before my abilities really reawakened, I went back to school for a third time to get my degree in meteorology, and my aunt appeared to me. She said she was on a the lower level of the other side. And from her, I learned that there are three levels on the other side once you cross over. And she appeared as a shadow. So that now I understand why some people and pets appear as shadows. It's because it's all about energy with me. And if you think about it, they are energy, ghosts and spirits, ghosts earthbound and spirits have crossed over, energy that have their memories and personality and the knowledge of this life. And they draw on energies in order to get strong enough to communicate. So when they don't have enough energy, they appear as shadows. They appear as shadow figures. It doesn't mean they're evil. It has nothing to do with their personality. It just means they don't have enough energy to appear in full color.
Interesting. Because a lot of people, most people I talk to have seen shadow figures like that.
Mhm.
They seem so common seeing a shadow figure. So that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It just means that the ghost or the spirit doesn't have enough energy. And what I've found, as a scientist, I try to explain it this way: when we die, the energies that are within us, coupled with memories and personality and knowledge, and that becomes a soul, if you will. That's a soul, and it's energy. And so we, in order to get strong enough to communicate, um, we have to draw on energies like heat, light, water, and electricity. All entities draw on those to communicate. But earthbound ghosts, ghosts that make a choice to stay earthbound at a fixed location they're familiar with, they also draw on negative emotional energies, and that is fear and anxiety and depression and anger. Those things fuel a ghost. Spirits of our loved ones, like my grandfather, drew on love and faith and hope and positive emotional energies. So, I've gone into a number of haunted places and a number of paranormal cases, and I've even felt anxiety, and my anxiety was actually fuel for that ghost to make a noise or to make their presence known. So it's all about
Interesting.
energy for me.
Yeah, yeah. So when people go into haunted locations and they're putting out that fear energy,
Mhm.
that's feeding the entities.
Absolutely. You might as well be giving them a bowl of granola, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that why sometimes, like a lot of the time, with like haunted houses and stuff like that, a lot of the time there's like negative connotations to it. Is that
Mhm.
why? Because they feed more, like it's easier to feed off negative energy. Which is that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the earthbound ones, anyone who's earthbound as a ghost, I call a ghost the earthbound and a spirit the ones that have crossed over, like our grandparents and our pets and so forth. Those are spirits. They can appear, by the way, anywhere, anytime in the world, any place. Ghosts can only appear in the location they chose. So not only do they feed off of negative emotions, but they radiate negative emotions. So if you have a ghost in your house, they will cause you to be more short-tempered with other living people, um, more anxious with other living people, more irritable. That's why I always tell people it's not a good idea to let the ghost stay in your house, even if they have a good personality. They just don't belong there.
And you say this is a decision that person makes when they pass to stay.
They do. Yeah. So what happens that I've found is that we get a life review after we die. So we see our life like in seconds, like everything we did, all the bad and all the good. And then people make a decision. And and I found that a lot of people who are very devout to their religions fear crossing over much more than people who are less religious. And that's because religion teaches them, some religions teach them that if you do, certain things, you're going to go to a fiery place. You're going to go to a bad place for your eternity. And that's not what spirits tell me on the other side. They tell me it's nothing but love and peace on the other side. And that hell, if you will, um, which was kind of the image was kind of conceived by man, like Dante's Inferno and so forth. Hell is really being trapped in a place on earth where you can't, as a ghost, where you can't talk to anybody for eternity unless you're lucky enough that a medium walks in your room.
Yeah. And
Isn't
you
that
can,
crazy?
yeah, that is crazy. And that is a terrifying thought to be trapped somewhere alone in the same spot. And yeah, man.
It's like being in an isolation prison cell for eternity
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
no escape. So yeah,
So
that would be hell.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So when you saw your granddad,
Mhm.
would he have picked to stay on this side, or
No, he crossed over.
Okay.
So, and I know that because he if he did decide to be an Earthbound ghost, he likely would have stayed in one of the houses that he lived in. Sometimes people stay where they work. Uh, I
You've
I
got to
can't
love your
understand.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't understand loving my job that much to want to
Yeah.
stay and haunt my office. So,
I I am definitely not staying where I work. That is for sure. Jeez.
um, but no, I think my granddad crossed over, so that means that he could appear to me anywhere, any place in the world, and and that happened with my aunt because my aunt passed in 1983, and she appeared in 1997 in Kentucky when I was going to school in Kentucky for meteorology. So she had crossed over. That's why she was able to appear to me. And one thing that I've found is that being a medium, earthbound ghosts and spirits who've crossed over both can sense mediums. They can sense your energy and they know that you can read their energy. So that's why they come to you.
Okay. When your aunt came to you, was you was that the first time you'd seen someone else since your granddad?
It was. Yeah, absolutely. It was the very first time since my granddad.
So that
And I wasn't afraid, although she was a shadow figure, because I knew it was her. I just knew it was her.
so
You know,
you could see the shape of her.
Um, not so well. Even well, it was in my room, and I was asleep, and she woke me up out of a sound sleep, and it was dark, so all I could see was a shadow at the end of my bed. But I knew it was her because I could hear her in my head.
Wow.
And she said, "I need forgiveness from your mother so that I can move to the next level of the afterlife."
Wow.
Yeah, and and my mother has passed, by the way, um, and so I can easily tell the story. But it took me 25 years to convince my mother to forgive my aunt on the other side.
Wow.
Well, with some sisters and brothers have love-hate relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Families, man.
families, right?
Wow. I've had that as well where I've woken up on numerous occasions and a figure's been standing over me. I've had
Gosh,
that. I've not communicated, it's just been fear and it sort of disappears. But I've experienced that and that's terrifying as well for me.
so you actually feel fear when you wake up and you see them?
Well, actually, the first time it ever happened to me, I was 21 years old, and
Okay.
I didn't know anything about shadow figures or things like that. I knew ghosts and things, obviously, but I didn't know about shadow figures really. And I saw this what looked like a man standing over my bed. At the time, I thought it was my brother, but it wasn't my brother, and it disappeared. But I just remember the fear, like I was terrified. And it's happened more recently, like literally in the last year, and I've not been. I'm still scared. I still wake up and I'm like, it's still a scared feeling, but not that terrified feeling that I had when I was 21. I don't know if that's because I know a little bit more about it now,
Hmm.
maybe, but yeah, it's still not something that I like.
No, I don't blame you. I don't like it either. It- it- and what's interesting about having this ability as a medium, I can actually see them in my mind as well. If I can't see them, physically, and I don't usually see them physically, but I sketch them out. So my books have different sketches of ghosts that I encountered, um, and then we've compared my sketches to like those of an infrared camera that were taken. In one instance, in my case files of Inspired Ghost Tracking book, there was a gentleman who was a steel worker in Baltimore, and he stayed behind. And the tech team had gone into the property like the week before and they were taking pictures and so forth. And I didn't know anything, that we don't learn anything until the mediums go in afterward. And I sketched them out. And then the manager of the group emailed me the picture from the infrared camera and said, this looks exactly like the guy that you drew. And that's in my book. So
Oh man,
yeah, there was
that's
another one
awesome.
where I went into a place that used to be a church and it became a museum. And there was another gentleman. He had spectacles on, he was balding, and he had hair on the sides, and he was the one that was there. And I sketched him out the way I saw him. And when I gave it to the person who was running the museum, she stopped me and she said, "Stay right there. I have to go get the history book from the church." So she went and found it. She opened the page and it was just like the guy that I drew.
It's
So it's
incredible.
yeah, it's pretty crazy when I can see them that well sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So you can feel them trying to connect with you, and then
Mhm.
you can just sort of you know who it is.
Yeah, I don't know their identity right off the bat, but sometimes I have to figure it out, and I've done that in many instances. So
Is this something you have to deal with on a daily? Are you getting messages coming through and spirits coming through every day, or is it something you can sort of switch off and open yourself up to?
well, it's a kind of a yes and no answer because it depends on where I am. Um, Here at home, I don't, there's no earthbound ghosts here. So, and when I'm, living my life and walking around, usually, I block things out, except when I'm on vacation because I'm in my most relaxed state. So my defenses are down and I'm just trying to enjoy myself and focus on the vacation. And that's when they all come in when I'm on vacation. So that's why I have that series of books called Ghosts on a Medium's Vacation, because all the dead people like to talk to me whenever I travel.
Oh man, you're just trying to chill.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting though. That when you're relaxed and you're open, as you say, things can just come in and
Mhm.
wow.
So
Wow.
I also do pet readings. I know we haven't talked about pets, but um, I do that on the weekends. I do pet spirit readings. So 99% of our pets, by the way, cross over into spirit. It's very rare that some will stay behind. I've only met 4 that have stayed, and for reasons that they were attached to their pet parent. Um, but um, I do pet readings, and I have people send me their pet's picture and their pet's name and any questions, and then I do them in the privacy of my own home in a quiet computer room and get messages. And all my books are filled with confirmations from these readings that the pet parent will allow me to share. So I can invite them in spirit,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's
I
cool.
like to watch I like to read a good book or watch a TV show without a dead person knocking on my
Yeah,
door.
you don't need it. That's what I was going to ask you about the pets passing on. I put a question out on social media recently, asking people if they ever seen one of their past pets.
Mhm,
So many people got back to me with their experiences of, and it's normally the same sort of thing. It's normally they'll feel them, they'll hear them, they'll know that they're there right after their passing, and
mhm.
then it's sort of like a confirmation that they've passed and that they're okay, and then they move on. That's sort of the, and it's happened to my brother as well. Happened to my
Oh,
brother
no
when,
kidding.
yeah. So when I,
What did your brother experience?
so we had a dog called Stan. He was a Staffy, lovely dog, beautiful dog, and he passed. And me and my brother, we used to share a room, and the dog was in our room as well. So it was the 3 of us in a room. We we all had our names on the door. Even the dog had his own name on the door as
Oh,
well.
that's great.
We loved it. He was just like another brother, you know. We loved him. I moved out before my brother did, so I'd moved out, so I wasn't living there at the time when he passed. But they still had my name on the room, and it was still our room basically. But I wasn't there. But Stan passed away.
Oh,
My brother was heartbroken. I was heartbroken,
mhm.
and he used to hear for a couple of weeks after. He used to hear him running up the stairs like just like he was there. Like that's what he'd hear it, and he would feel him jump between his legs like he used to do and sleep. That's what he used to. He always used to want to be by our legs on the bed and sleep. And my brother used to feel it and just felt him there as well, obviously. And another weird thing that happened, these signs that we had on our door, his name fell down, which I don't know if that was quite strange because they was there for years, and it was quite weird how that happened after he passed as well. Um, so yeah, we experienced that. And my brother's not a massively spiritual person. Like he you know, he's not like me, as open to it all as I am. But he'll tell you that happened and he felt that.
Wow. Well, if that didn't convince him that spirits will come back to visit, I don't know what would.
That's what I
Really.
say to him. I say you experienced that. He literally used to feel him between his legs and hear him, and yeah,
So that brings up a really good point. And one thing I tell people is that when pets come back to give us messages, they often come back, number one, right after they pass, because they want to make sure that we know they're okay. And number two, they will usually do the same things that they did when they were alive, like lay down between your brother's legs, or lay against somebody's back, or um, a cat would walk across the bed, or run up and down stairs. So yeah, so that's how it works. Those are just some of the signs that pets give, but they do the same thing that they did in life.
yeah. So is that just like just sort of a knowing that they're is it like a message that they're giving to you as well, or is it just they're just living out their routine?
Well, it's kind of both. So they're living out their routine because they want us to know that they're still here in spirit, even though they know that they've crossed over. It's important for us to know that they're still the same loving dog or cat on the other side that they were when they were alive. So it's really comforting.
Yeah,
I do lectures about how pets communicate from the afterlife, and I do fundraising lectures for animal rescues up and down the U.S. East Coast, and I always have people share their stories, and everybody has a story. It's amazing how many people have experienced different things from their pets.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've spoken to so many people that have shared that similar experience where they can still hear and feel their pet after they passed for a few days or a week or whatever it is, but just sort of then you get that comfort that they're still there.
Yeah, absolutely. After our dachshund Franklin passed, Franklin was a 16 and a half-year-old dachshund who never missed a meal. He never missed a treat. Um, the night of his passing, um, he I in our house at like 7:30 or 8 p.m., I always have three treat time for the rest of our dogs. So, and they know when I say three treat time, they come out and they line up. Um, so that night that after Franklin had passed, I announced it was three treat time. The other three dogs came out and they lined up and they left a space for Franklin. So I knew that Franklin was right in the middle there. That's number one. Number two, while I was standing there in the corner of the kitchen, this was in May that Franklin passed, and it was 90 degrees when I was living in Maryland. The left side of my body had physical chills on the left side. So, and the right side of my body was hot. And so I knew that Franklin had materialized right on the left side, near the left side of my body. And as a scientist, I actually also can explain cold spots to you. So Franklin showed up for his three treats, created a cold spot, let me know that he was there, and the other three dogs saw him because dogs and cats can see spirits and ghosts. So so have you ever heard an explanation for why there's a cold spot when there's a ghost or a spirit?
No, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Well, that's see, this is what you get for talking to a scientist. So
Yeah, that's
so
so cool. Yeah.
so I've tried to explain everything with energy. So um we talked about how ghosts and spirits are energy with memories and personality. And to get strong enough, they need to draw energy from somewhere. So I thought about temperature and how temperature changes and how it's associated with energy. And what I've concluded is that they draw from the molecules of air, the air molecules, they draw the energy of motion from them because fast moving molecules of air in the tropics are warm air, and slow moving molecules of air in the Arctic are cold air. So what they do is they take that energy and it slows the molecules down. And by slowing the molecules down, it creates a cool spot. And that's why you feel cold spots when they're trying to manifest, when they're trying to show up.
Wow. Because I've talked to people as well that investigate the paranormal like you do, and they'll say that they're going to a cold spot, and on some occasion you can even feel you can put your hand in a cold spot and sort of feel the energy, if that makes sense. That's how people have explained it to me. I've never felt that, but it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So now you know what you know why now.
Yeah, yeah. So when you get a cold spot, there's something there.
There's someone who is trying to come together and get strong enough to give you a message that's
Wow.
standing there.
Yeah. Can I ask you? This might be a difficult question. How hard is it for a spirit to manifest full-bodied? I mean, because it's obviously something that's quite rare because not many people see full-bodied apparitions. Is it something that's really difficult and rare to see?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. It's extremely rare to see that. So yeah, so my grandfather is an example. He's the only full body apparition I think I've ever seen. I have seen my dog Buzz, but I only saw him from the middle to the tail, walking
Wow.
away from me, physically and in full color. Um,
Wow.
and I thought he was my other dog. And when I went to go look for my other dog was sleeping in another room upstairs.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how I knew that I had seen my dog Buzz that had passed away.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, you said at the start, your first, so you had your granddad experience and then you something happened with your pet. Was that the dog that you saw?
Yes, yeah. So it was my grandfather and then my aunt as a shadow figure, and then my puppy in 2005. He was tragically killed by a car when his leash opened. But he's the one that opened the doors for me and started giving me messages immediately. He moved things with the help of a human spirit on the other side. He gave me musical signs. Um, he led me to another dog that looked exactly like him on the anniversary of his passing. Um, so
Wow.
this so people will read all these things in my books and they will be able to understand what to look for.
Yeah. Wow. You said it's rare, but some pets stay. Can you give us some examples of would that just be the activity that you're hearing and feeling, but just constantly?
Well, it depends on the pet. So I met three cats and one dog. And one of the dogs, the dog that I met was there in England.
Oh wow.
He was
Cool.
at
Whereabouts was that?
he was near Baker Street, I think. He was Sir John Soane's museum. John
Oh,
Soane is
okay.
an architect from the 1800s, I think.
Is that in
Um,
London?
yes,
Cool.
yeah. And when I walked into this museum, it's now a museum. It used to be his house. There was a little black and tan dog that was running around. When I opened the door to the museum, and I turned to my partner and I said, "That's crazy. There's a little dog running around in here, and this is a museum." And he said, "There's no dog here." And I said,
Wow.
"Yeah, but there is." So I saw the dog a couple of times running through the museum back and forth when I was walking through, and we walked into this room, and in this room there was a giant painting. It had to be probably 16 feet high by, I don't know, 6 feet wide. And it was a painting of a woman, and in her lap was this little black and tan dog. And I looked at it, and it said it was Mrs. Johnson and her dog Fanny. And Fanny is the one that stayed behind. So I found out that Fanny, by communicating with the dog, I found out that Fanny was so devout to his mom, Mrs. Sohn, that when he passed, he stayed. And then he continues to stay. He doesn't want to cross over because he loves greeting people like me at the door. And he's been doing that for 120 years. So,
So cool.
and what's interesting about that is that I asked a couple of people about a ghost dog in there, and several people said yes, everybody that works there has seen little Fanny running around. So, and then they asked me if there was any human ghosts, and I said no, there's no human ghosts, and they said that's correct. Nobody has reported a human ghost, only little Fanny running around.
Interesting.
So that's in my
so
book,
cool.
Ghosts of England. Yeah.
Wow. All the links to your books will be in the show description, so people can find your books. That's awesome, man. Interesting. So I actually saw in the house that I'm in now.
Mhm.
I actually saw a black cat run past me
Oh,
while we was all having a family dinner, and I jumped out my skin because we haven't got a black cat, and this is before the dog that I've got now. We've got a dog now, but I didn't at the time, and I jumped because I see him run past me, a black cat, and I've looked all around the house, and no windows are open. We don't have a cat. There is black cats on our street, but you know,
yeah.
there wasn't a cat in the house, and I saw a full. I've not seen it since, but yeah, that was weird.
Interesting. So, whenever what I always tell people is that whenever they see a ghost or or a spirit, make note of what day it is and what time it is, because that date and that time may be something relevant to the identity of the ghost or the spirit.
Yeah. Is there something to do with like dates of passings and stuff like that? That it's easier for spirits to come to show themselves, to manifest into our. Is there something to do with that, or?
I'm not sure if it's easier, but usually they like to do the date thing because it actually helps prove their identity.
Oh
It's
wow.
it's really about giving clues to their identity. Um, so I mentioned that I saw a dog that looked like my dog Buzz that passed, and that happened when I was on vacation. So spirits can come to you on vacation too. That doesn't matter where you are. And and when I was in Puerto Rico on vacation, never had been there before, we had to decide what street to go down. There were like 5 streets in front of us. And my partner says to me, "Which street do you want to go down?" And I said, "I don't know, never been here before." So I felt the urge to go down one street. And when I did, when we got all the way down at the end of that street, there was a man walking dogs, and he was walking, I don't know, 5 or 6 dogs. One of the dogs, Tommy, was a dead ringer for Buzz. Exactly the same breed, Weimaraner, gray, green eyes. um, and I heard Buzz in my head suddenly when I saw that dog, and he says, "Dad, do you know what day it is?" And I thought, what in the world? What day is it? And so my partner said it's February 22nd. And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is 4 years to the day that Buzz passed away."
Oh wow.
Yeah. So Buzz nudged
Oh man.
me to go down that street so I would purposely see another dog to remind me that he's still with me, even 4 years later.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man. That gave me goosebumps.
I know.
Wow.
So they have all kinds of stories like that in these Pets in the Afterlife books.
Yeah, man. It's amazing. And it's so comforting to know because there's something special. Like our pets are part of the family.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
for so many of us, they're just we love them as much as we love anyone in our family. They're so important. Especially with my family as well. Like we love all our dogs and cats, and you know. So it's always a very sad time when they pass.
Well, we raise them like children, and as humans, children are not supposed to outlive us, and that's what makes it so hard. And there have been a lot of psychological studies that I've read. I cited one, I think, in one of the books that said that that's why people grieve so deeply when they lose a pet, because it is really like losing a child.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You take care of them. You see them every day. They love you as much as you love them. You know, yeah, man. It's yeah, but very comforting to know that they're always there.
Absolutely. I always tell people that the only thing that they do that, excuse me, that they don't do that humans do is that they don't grow up and marry someone you don't like and move away.
Yeah, yeah,
Pets don't do that.
yeah. They're loyal. They stay.
They're loyal, right?
So when they pass, obviously we all go to the same place once you cross that
Mhm.
line.
Mhm. Yeah, they do. And I found that humans are relatives in spirit or friends in spirit are on the other side, and they're encouraging the dog or cat or horse or whatever bird to go across. Not that they really need the encouragement because pets can sense a good thing. They can sense a happy place, with good energy versus a bad place. They just like in life, pets will any animal will run away from something that gives bad energy or has a bad feeling or gives dread. So that's why conversely they run to the light because it's nothing but love and peace. So yeah, and our relatives are there waiting for them.
Yeah.
I've had and I've had proof of that too. I have several stories in my books about how relatives have proven that they're there for our pets.
Would you mind sharing one of them or
Oh, no, not at all. Um,
thank you.
so uh there are there's one that's really difficult though for me to talk about because this is about my Weimaraner Dolly. Dolly is um Dolly is pictured behind me. She's up here.
Oh,
She's in
beautiful.
my Pets in the Afterlife 3 book. She was a Weimaraner. She lived to be almost 16 years old, and she passed in 2020. And she was my what I call a heart dog, which means that out of all the dogs you have, she's one of the absolute closest ones. So we could read each other's mind. All she had to do was look at me, and I would say, "Okay, I know what you want." And and I would look at her, and she would say, "Okay, I'm gonna get up, and we're gonna get ready to go out." Or so we were really kindred spirits, if you will. So anyway, long story short, in the last year of her life, she was incontinent with number one and number two, so she wore a diaper. She would sleep out in the kitchen in a big bed instead of in the bedroom. But she was bonded to our little dachshund, Tyler, and they would sleep together, they would eat together, they would play together. Um, so in the last year of her life, every night Tyler and I would go into the kitchen and I would lay my head on her bed and Tyler would cuddle up against her. And we would wait till she slept, fell asleep, and then I would pick Tyler up and carry him in my room. So we wanted to make sure Dolly slept. The last night that she was with us, um, uh, there was a there was a disc that slipped from her spine, and she was almost 16, so it was inoperable. Um, and she lost the use of her back legs immediately. It was like 5 o'clock at night. We had to call the vet for the next day to come out and help her cross. But that night, Tyler and I were sleeping on her bed with her, and she woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she was staring at part of the kitchen. And I kept trying to get her to put her head down. Now, here's a dog who just lost the use of her legs, could hardly sit up, but she was sitting up and she was staring. And when I looked at that side of the kitchen, Tommy, this is hard for me. There was my mom and dad in spirit, our friend Ed,
Wow.
um, our dog Franklin that just passed, Buzz, and our dog Sprite. and they were all standing there and they were waiting. And it was just for like, I don't know, 15 seconds. And they faded. And I knew they were waiting. And the next day after Dolly passed, I sent a note to my friend Ruth Larkin, who is a medium. And I told her, I just sent her a note and I said, you know how close I am to Dolly. And Dolly passed today. And she wrote me back and she said, Rob, I want you to know that she's okay. She said, there to greet her were your mom and dad, this guy that I have no idea who he is. And she said there were three dogs there. And she said one of them was Franklin. I don't know who the other two were. And the other two were other dogs that and so she confirmed in a text message the exact people and animals that I saw in the kitchen the night before Dolly passed.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Yes, it's a hard story for me to tell.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I can imagine. You gave me goosebumps again the second time. Man. Oh, wow. I mean, that's so sad, but amazing as well, to see that. I mean, wow. When
Yeah,
when you saw when you saw your family the other side, was that full bodied?
it was actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Wow.
was the other thing that was weird. I'd forgotten about that. That's and our friend, well, a spirit that I befriended that I never met in life. He was the guy.
Wow.
He
Wow.
was so I wrote a book about him too. It's called Kindred Spirits, How a Medium Befriended a Spirit, because I never knew him in life, but he's come to me all the time since I've been with my husband, and I've grown to know him so well that he's like a best friend that lives in another state, and he's told me so many things about their lives together long before me, like 20 years before me, and then I get confirmations from my partner. He's like, I don't like you talking to him.
Wow.
So
Wow. So
yeah,
is he like a spirit guide or is he
so he kind of is with us. So the Kindred Spirits book is really crazy because he, number one, he's proven that he is one of the people that's always there when our dogs pass. He's done it three times now, and he does it with a coin. So coins can be a sign from spirit. Look at the date on it, and that will give you a clue as to who it is. Ed passed in 1996. And I have to tell you, Tommy, I have more 1996 coins than any other year ever because he's always throwing them at me.
wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing, man. That is cool. I don't want to keep you on set because I know that's very sad for you to talk about it, but you said your dog sort of perked up because he knew he was seeing what you were seeing as well. You
Yes.
you hear that quite a lot with pets and with people that
Hmm.
when they're about to pass, they
Hmm.
have a moment of where they seem to be they seem to be he's got all of a sudden got a lot of energy, seems to be
Yes.
talking and very. Is there something to do with that?
Um, th there's a couple of reasons why they do that. So our dog Sprite did that. Sprite had a tumor that burst in his nose, and after an ER overnight visit, they let us keep him for a couple hours and have the dog say goodbye to him. And so we made the appointment for him at like midday the next day so that we could put him to sleep. And he had not been eating for like 3 days. But that day on the drive to the vet, I had his favorite treat, which was a bacon strip, bacon flavored thing. I just brought it. I don't know why. I just brought it. And so he ate the entire thing and he showed a burst of energy. And that made me feel guilty. That made me feel awful, kind of. But that's not what his intent was. His intent was to show me that he is so happy that we recognized it's time for him to pass, that he ate that treat. And that's why they sometimes show a burst of energy because we finally get it. We finally understand their message.
I mean, animals definitely seem like cats and dogs. They definitely seem to be they're aware of things around us. I notice it with my little dog now. He stops and he'll look at something. He can see something. He sometimes barks at the corner of the room. It feels like he can see something. I remember with my old dog Stan, there was a
Mhm.
time when me and my brother we used to sit up and watch telly on the couch, and we had two couches in the room. And I remember one night Stan perked up. He saw something on the couch, went crazy, jumped on the couch, and you could sort of tell that when he got onto the couch, he was like, "Where's it gone?" Whatever he could see, he was like, it was really. So I feel like they're all as like kids are open. It feels like animals are open like that their whole life.
So yeah, and I explained that there is a scientific reason why they can see ghosts and spirits. So I explained that in my books too, is that, and I've learned that they have different cones and rods in their eyes, and that configuration of cones and rods enables them to see faster movement. And spirits and ghosts move at a faster vibration than
Oh,
we can see as humans. So they don't need a high-speed camera like we do as investigators. They can see them head on. Also, they hear at different frequencies. So like dog whistles cannot be heard by humans. They're different frequencies. It just sounds, it's like silence to us, but dogs can hear it, cats too. Um, when spirits communicate, they often communicate at different frequencies that we can't hear. But if we're using a digital recorder and we play it back, we can hear their answer because it picks up different frequencies. The one thing that will freak out a pet when they see a ghost or spirit is that it takes so much energy for a spirit of a dog or cat to manifest that they can be visible and you can hear them. But I've found that it takes way too much energy for them to replicate scent. And dogs and cats are they're scent oriented. So imagine being a dog or cat and you're looking at another dog or cat that shows up and you can hear them, you can see them, but you can't smell them. It doesn't make any sense. And that freaks them out. So sometimes cats are more apt to run the other way.
wow.
So there's the science for you.
Yeah, man, it's so interesting. How does, because obviously you're a scientist, and I always find it fascinating to talk to scientists. How does the community in science in general, I know this might be another difficult question, see the paranormal side? Is it difficult being a scientist and being so open with the paranormal, or
I just don't tell the other scientists. What they don't know won't hurt them.
yeah,
But to me, it's important that I try to prove everything I get. And if I can't explain something, I really look hard for the explanation in a scientific way.
yeah,
So
that's cool, man.
I think that the paranormal will be explained in terms of science eventually if more people start looking at it from a scientific perspective.
Yeah,
Because I've been able to explain things that make total sense to me. So
yeah. Do you
hopefully
think
others will too.
do you think it's something that in the future is gonna it feels like with the paranormal it is becoming more open. People are a lot more happier, it seems, to talk about like everyone, most people have had some sort of paranormal experience in their life.
Mhm.
The amount of people I talk to that go, "Oh no, I'm not sure," but then they tell me this incredible story, and I'm like, "How can you not be sure that there's more?" So it does feel like people are opening up more, and hopefully, the more we talk about it, the more everyone looks into it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's unfortunate that most people have to have an experience before they believe in it. Um, uh, but there are, people that subscribe to certain religions around the world are taught not to believe it, or taught that that we're talking to some kind of ridiculous demon or something, which is absolutely not the case. Unless you called your grandmother a demon, then you know, maybe she was tough. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Rob, this has been awesome, man. We're coming to the hour mark. I don't know if you've got time to carry on for a bit longer or if we need to to start wrapping it up. But this has been a fascinating conversation, man.
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to stay on for a little bit longer. Sure.
Awesome. I was gonna ask you. See, you had the experience where you saw your aunt and you connected with your aunt. Was
Mhm.
that the start of you becoming a medium and opening up? And was that the start of it all for you?
Um, it really, no, actually, it really wasn't. Because after my aunt, that was just a thing that kind of lingered for 25 years. That one thing, and I never saw another ghost or spirit until my dog passed in 2005. So it was another 8 years, I think. And then things changed.
Yeah. So what happened to fully immerse you into this?
So when Buzz passed and he conveyed all these different signs to me, I wrote them all down. I used to keep a diary. And so I started looking back on the diary about all the different signs that he gave me. And I thought, you know what? People would probably find this very helpful and comforting to know how their pets are communicating with them. And that was the impetus for me to write the first book. Um, and while I was writing that book, my dad passed away, and he passed away in 2008. Um, and my dad, he really changed things for me. He's the one person on the other side that changed things for me because he helped me prove to my mother and my brothers that he was at his own wake and his own funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I'll be happy to share that story with you if
Yeah,
you
I'd
wish.
love to. I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
Sure. It was so it's in my book Ghosts and Spirits Explained. That's one of the stories that I have in there. And so my parents were married 53 years, long time. And my mother, who was a little Italian woman who was very, headstrong. She's very affectionate, but she was very headstrong. Um, she she always told my dad liked to use handkerchiefs, and my mother always said, I remember this when I was a kid. My mother always said, they're disgusting. Handkerchiefs are disgusting. And she always used to make my dad wash them separately in the laundry. She said, I don't want your snot on my clothes. She was fiery. So, um, so that said, um, my mother never bothered with his handkerchiefs at all. And so during the wake, when my dad was being waked, I could sense him there in the funeral home, and I was watching where he was going and what he was doing. And he would come over to me and he would say things, and I would share them with my partner. And my brothers really didn't believe what was going on, because they had no proof. I had no proof for them. Um, and so at my dad's funeral, the next like 2 days later, I was sitting in the front pew with my next to my mom, and my partner was next to me, and my brothers were behind us, one row. And I saw my dad on the what do you call it, the altar, and he walked around and he walked over to me and he stood next to me, and I was looking at him. So I'm looking at him, and my mother is, of course, crying hysterically in her Kleenex, and it's falling apart. And my dad looks over to me and he leans over and he says, Rob, tell your mother to use my handkerchief. And I just said out loud, I said, what? And my mother looked over at me, and my dad said it again 2 more times. And I said, okay, okay. And my mother says, who are you talking to? There's nobody there. And I said, it's dad. And I said, he said, he wants you to use his handkerchief. And my mother's eyes just went wide and her mouth opened, and she reached into her purse and she pulled out my dad's handkerchief for the first time in 53 years. And she said, how did you know? And I said, because he's standing right here and he told me. I said, I had no idea you had that. And my brothers were astounded. So I proved to my
Wow.
mom and my brothers that my dad was at his own services. And we all go to our own services, by the way, because we want to see who comes.
Wow, man. You've
Yeah.
given me goosebumps again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a record.
I think you need a sweatshirt.
Jeez. I do, man. I do. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And
man.
so my dad was my dad also taught classes at night, and every time I do lectures or like interviews or talk to anybody or even write, because my dad loved to write and he loved to read, I'm always feel my dad around. So so he's here with me tonight.
Yeah. Oh, I love
He
that,
wanted
man.
me to he wanted me to throw that story out if I had time. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
because
cool.
and Tommy, it's especially relevant today. He wanted me to be, I know now why he wanted me to tell you that story, because today would have been his 95th birthday.
Oh, wow. Today.
So thank you for letting me honor my
Man.
dad on what would have been his birthday.
No, thank you. And happy birthday, man. Thank you very much. Wow. That's incredible, man.
Yeah. So
Wow.
he's made himself known, and my dad had a very quiet, sarcastic kind of sense of humor. So after he passed, I would call my mother every day and check on her and just talk to her and everything. And she lived 400 miles away from me. So my dad loved to play with the electricity in her home. Before he died, there was nothing wrong with the electricity in her home. But after he died, he was playing with the electricity. And we had a light. My mother had a light. Her bedroom was at the end of a hallway, and she would walk down the hallway, and without touching the switches, suddenly the light would go on and off, on and off. And I remember a couple of times I would call her and she'd be walking over the portable phone, um, and the light would be going on and off, and she would stop and she would cuss my father out. And she would say, "Stop playing with the light."
Wow.
So it was kind of funny that he was always around her. He was
That's
protecting her from the
so
other
cool.
side.
That's so cool. And they're so comforting as well. To
It
know that
is.
it is, it really is. And you say that it's common for people to go to their wake.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Almost everybody does. Yep.
Wow, that's such a, yeah, that's awesome, man.
So yeah, I mean, wouldn't you want to know who comes?
Yeah, 100%. Who invited him?
Exactly. I'm gonna haunt
Oh,
that guy.
yeah. Bro, that's so cool, man. Thank you so much for sharing amazing experiences, personal experiences. Super interesting. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm just really I'm honored that you allowed me to share my dad's story tonight, especially
That's an
tonight,
honor. That's an
because
honor.
he's here with me.
Wow. That's so cool. I mean, I was very close to both my granddads that have passed over.
Mhm.
And I quite often smell them. I'll
Oh,
get
really?
I'll get a smell. I'll smell my granddad's old aftershave that I, I don't even know what it was, to be honest, but I know the smell. And I'm like, oh, my granddad's here. I just sort of get that. That's how I'm giving myself goosebumps now. But that's how, so that's how I would feel that they're there. I feel like I can sometimes smell them. I don't know if that's something that can happen or
Yeah, that's awesome. Scent is definitely a way that spirits can convey their presence, and usually, although it's harder for like for a pet in spirit to create a scent, it's easier for a human to, because humans will just use scent. They won't try to be seen and heard at the same time, so they'll just use scent, like a cologne or a cigar or scent of roses or flowers or something like that.
so that's
And
their way of letting you know that they're there.
yeah. So
Wow.
when you smell that scent, was that date relative to his birthday or his passing or your birthday or some other
Um,
event?
I'm going to need to start noting down
Okay.
dates because I don't normally do. I should do. Should note down dates.
Mhm.
It's weird because with the smell thing, when I smell my granddad's, that sounds weird, but when I get their smell, um, it's never normally when I'm thinking about it, or I don't say, "Oh, granddad, you there?" And I'll just get the smell, and it will just come out of nowhere, and I'm like, "Smell my granddad," and I just know it's them. It's weird.
So when they do that, when they kind of appear out of nowhere, they do that because we're usually either stressed or we're thinking about them, or we need some kind of comfort, or we need to take care of ourselves. And that's usually when they show up.
Okay, yeah,
So you have to think back about that one too.
yeah, for sure. I quite often have them in dreams as well.
Hmm.
And the weird thing is so in my dream, I can literally hug them and feel them, and it's so real. It feels very real. These dreams, I wake up and I'm like, that just felt like I was just with my granddad. Like, it's really weird. I have that every now and again as well with both my granddads. So
That's really special because dreams are the easiest way for spirits to communicate with us because our logical mind is asleep. That's what dispels what we experience. But when you have that tactile feeling, when you can actually feel them, hug them, kiss them, whatever, that's a deeper dream. That's what I call a visit instead. It means you have a much deeper connection than in just a dream. So that's really special. And it's rare.
that's cool. Oh wow. Because that's something I've experienced quite a lot. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a rare it's a rare thing and it's a really wonderful gift to be able to do
Yeah.
that because so many of us would like to hug our loved ones from the other side and they give us that opportunity as long as they have enough energy to do that. That that's again, it all comes back to how much energy do they have.
Yeah. Super interesting. And so comforting as well.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rob, thank you so much, man. I have loved having you on the show. It's been absolutely awesome. You're welcome on here anytime, man.
Oh, well, thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I mean, we've had a great discussion. I would love to come back and tell you some really cool stories more about how crazy stories about how pets communicated or any of the ghosts I met on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you ever had a encounter a spirit that's sort of not been welcoming, not been a nice experience?
Hmm. Yeah, two of them.
Do you
One of them
mind
was on,
if we get into that? Or
yeah, sure. One of them was on a paranormal investigation. We were investigating a place called Cocky's Tavern in Maryland. It was an old tavern back in the 1700s, and which is not old to the folks that live in England, of course, but it is old in the US. And the owner was complaining of um, noises and different things. And when I went in there, I sensed that there was a man there on the first floor, and he was not nice. And um, so I didn't pursue him because he was irritable. So when I left, the manager of the group called me and she emailed me an EVP, so a voice clip that they got in that same room. And it was a male voice, clearly a male voice, and it said, "Kill Rob." And I just thought, okay, I'm not going back there.
wow, no,
Yeah,
man.
so he was a jerk. And then the only other place that I ran into a really irritable guy was in the back of Greyfriars Bobby Cemetery in Scotland.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a guy it's it's very rare that a cemetery is haunted, but this particular guy was not well liked. I'm putting it lightly, by a lot of people. Um, and he used to go out and he used to, in his life, this is what I got from him. He would go and kind of hang out in the cemetery because nobody liked seeing him because he was an irritable, nasty man. Um, so in death, he decided to hang out in the back of the cemetery where he used to go in life. Um, and when I went back there, I didn't know that there was, I didn't know there was a ghost back there. And as I approached the back there, It's covered over. Um, he said, "Get out," to me. And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I will." And
Ah,
I did.
is it possible to pass a spirit like that on to the other side, or will they just not?
No, well, it depends. Yeah, it depends on their personality. So, as a member of Inspired Ghost Tracking, we combine our emotional energies together. It takes like 4 or 5 of us to open a doorway to the other side. That's why individual ghosts don't have enough energy to just cross over. So it takes like 4 or 5 people, living people, to combine their energies to do that. But they have to be able to. They have to want to go over. You know, if you're stubborn in life, you're going to be stubborn in death. We do call on the relatives in spirit from the other side to help us convince them to go across. But sometimes it doesn't work. So,
Wow.
so that, for all I care, that guy can just sit there and,
Yeah, be
you
miserable.
know, be miserable for the rest of his afterlife.
That must be an amazing feeling when you get someone over that line and calling on their family to come and help. That must be amazing.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can tell you a whole bunch of cases that we did, but we
Yeah,
can do it another time. This is
another
a bit
time,
long,
man, because we'll go on all
but
night. I've got more
but
and
I
more questions.
I will tell you that when we cross somebody over, what's really weird is that we always experience a burst of warm air that comes from where we cross them over. It's
Interesting.
always a burst of warm air, and that's our confirmation. And I think that has something to do with the energy in the molecules of the air that get excited um, when we cross them over. So again, it's
Interesting.
energy.
Yeah, yeah. Everything's energy, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, super interesting. Rob, thank you so much. You're going to have to come back on because I've got more questions for you. So we'll
Okay, Tommy, hold
have
on
to
to
do it
them.
another time. Yeah. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you and your work?
Sure. Well, all my books are on Amazon. They're on Amazon around the world. So Amazon UK, Amazon.com, Amazon AU, everywhere, Amazon. Um, I'm self-published, so I price them as low as I possibly can because I want people to read them and learn from them. And I'm on robgutro.com, and if you can't remember my name, type in petspirits.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and other places. And I do write a blog every week about a paranormal topic. And I post on social media every single day, questions and readings that I've done and all kinds of things. And I do pet readings on weekends. I'm booked out a year in advance.
Wow.
Um, because I only do them on weekends until I retire next year. And I give lectures to fundraising lectures to animal rescues. So if anybody is listening in the US, look at my events page. Um, I stay busy in my spare time outside of work.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But
Oh, and I'm finishing my 11th book, by the way, just so you know.
wow, 11th.
It's it's Ghosts of Ireland on the Medium's Vacation.
Sounds
Very
good.
excited about that one.
Wow. Awesome stuff. Well, I will share the links. Will be in the show description. Rob,
Thank you.
thank you so much, sir. I look forward to talking to you more.
Oh, likewise. You're you are such a pleasure to talk to, Tommy, and we have so much more to talk about. So
Awesome. Thank you very
thank you.
much. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.